All right, so this is part 2 of a 2-part series about the hero's journey. And the question for this lesson is, what does the hero represent to his culture? Now first, let's do a quick review from the last lesson. Remember that the hero's journey provides an example for the young, especially the boys of the civilization. Right? One of the things that Joseph Campbell talks about, and you can agree with this or disagree with this, is that women know what their role is within the civilization as child bearers and mothers and wives, and that's kind of defined by their bodies and their reproductive roles, but very often men don't know what their roles are. Now many people do not agree with Campbell, and you don't have to either, but that's the central claim here, is that these are examples for young men. And part of that example is that the young man needs to find out the truth, and he needs to heal the community, or he needs to perform some kind of self-sacrifice for the community. And so let's start with a literary concept here, and that concept is symbolism. Right? You know what symbols are. You see them all day long. Right? A symbol is something that stands for something else. You just kind of look down the line here. It's interesting to notice, too, that different civilizations have different symbols, especially the ones for, like boys and girls, men and women here, that may not be common throughout all civilizations. All right, so when we talk about symbolism in literature, that's the artist's use of very limited actions or concrete objects to stand for themes or characters' emotions. Right? And I use the term artists on purpose because there is symbolism in visual art, even symbolism in music, although of course what we're talking about here is symbolism in language, particularly creative writing like myths, novels, poems, plays, etc. Right? And so an example of this is the Navajo creation myth's use of corn, or the Hebrew myth's use of soil as the origin of humanity. Right? To the Navajos, the corn is the main food product, and so corn symbolizes life. For the Hebrews, the land is the basis of identity, and so the dirt or the soil symbolizes life. Right? Which kind of brings us up to the level of allegory. Right? Allegory simply means the entire work of art stands for something or a series of processes. It's kind of like symbolism on steroids, right? That everything in the story is symbolic. Everything the character does is somehow symbolic of something else. That everything the character does is symbolic of the human struggles or psychological conflicts and emotions that all humanity faces. Right, so this has some implications for our readings. And in this unit, we're going to look at 3 hero myths. We'll look at a selection from the Epic of Gilgamesh, a selection from the Odyssey, and I think it's the entire hero myth of Amwindo. And I'm not as familiar with this one. It's brand new to me. It's my first time teaching it. But it seems to be a complete myth in that it has a complete plot and everything's in one place. Epic of Gilgamesh is a Babylonian, Sumerian, Mesopotamian myth. The Odyssey is Greek, and Amwindo comes from the Nyanga people of the Congo region of Africa. Right, so as you read these, there are 3 things I really want you to do and think about. Right? I want you to think about what examples they set for young men. Right? How do these stories provide an allegory for becoming a man, or an allegory for becoming a successful man? What steps does the hero have to go through? And so I want you to think about those specific actions that they perform. We see a picture here of Odysseus being tempted by the sirens to kill himself and give up his journey, and that's allegorical of giving up because of fear, giving up because of terror. Right? Other times Odysseus is going to be tempted to give up because of laziness, and that's one of the episodes that we're going to look at. And finally, I want you to make inferences about what these cultures valued. Right? When Amwindo shows charity and mercy, that's a clear signal to the young men of that Nyanga tribe that charity and mercy are desirable qualities, and that's something that culture values and wants its young men to demonstrate. right? Because as you've heard me say before, as you're going to hear me say a ton of times, right? You can tell a lot about a culture by the stories that it tells itself. In fact, I would maybe urge you to think of yourself and your life that way, right? If historians and scholars and literary scholars were to look at your life 500 years from now, what would they think about your culture? Do you live in a dysfunctional, violent, criminal culture? If the artifacts in your bedroom show that, what does that mean about you? And so that's it. Thanks for watching.